Welcome to our January overview. I am so excited to get into the upcoming month. I know right now we are in the middle of December, so we're in the midst of holidays and joyful busyness. But January is going to feel like a out-breath. If you read in the beginning of our books, we talk about in-breaths and out-breaths on a small scale and a big scale. And so we intentionally crafted this January curriculum as one big out-breath after the hustle and bustle of December. And it should feel like a warm hug. So January it's a much calmer month. You'll get back to kind of some of your basic rhythms. It is the month that we kind of dive into wintry weather, though you do not have to live in a place with wintry weather to enjoy the January curriculum. We wrote this in a way that even though we're going to talk about ice and snow, even if you're in a tropical place, it's really fun stories and activities that you can do wherever you live. So let's dive into January. I don't have a January chalkboard to show you, but if you do see the January board, either in a card or a Turbolux or however, you'll see the Winter King and Snow Queen, you'll see the gnomes skating on the ice, and you'll see a very cozy scene in Puddle Bloom's study that you'll kind of see where those stories come to life. So for January, we have Cozy Week, which is the best for week one, Ice Week, Snow Week, and Game Week. Now, as far as your planning, I do tend to align this the week after New Year's. So I tend to recommend that people take that between Christmas and New Year's week off. So I wouldn't try starting this the week of New Year's. If I'm going to place Cozy Week, it would probably start on January 5th. And then it aligns really well with the 4 weeks of January, and you can go right on to February. I touched on this on our winter planning, so if you didn't catch that, that's in the replay library right now that you can still watch for free for the next month. So Cozy Week, we open up after January, after the New Year, after all the hustle and bustle of all of the holidays, Ice Week, Snow Week, and Game Week, and these are all really, really sweet weeks for this month. So let's dive into January. Our supplies for January, we have our nice supply list here for you. You'll notice Cozy Week does not have a lot of supplies. That's intentional. It's a very simple week for you to just kind of ease in. So Cozy Week is exactly what it sounds like. So if you were here in autumn, if you remember, I mentioned Bread Week. It's kind of the basic curriculum rhythm. Whether you were here in autumn or not, this week also really shows you our basic curriculum at its core. So if you're easing into our curriculum or kind of newer, or if you have a younger one, this is a great week that really guides you through just the gentle rhythm at its simplest. And if you're ever overwhelmed or ever don't feel like you're up for all the seasonal crafts, come back to this kind of week and you can just do these things on repeat. If you have a 2-year-old or a littler one, or if this is your first year with us, this week is a really great week to just repeat and really settle in so you can just feel the rhythms of your homeschooling. So we open up with our Cozy Week story. And this is a really sweet story because the title of the story is The Winter King. And all the gnomes are at Puddle Bloom's house and he is telling a story. So this is a story about storytelling, and you get to hear Puddle Bloom recall some of his adventures when he was a younger gnome on his way to meet the Winter King. Now, if you listened to our The Story of Winter's Day winter special, you'll kind of get a little bit of a sense of some of the background of the Winter King and all of these characters. So I highly recommend listening to that before this, and it'll give you a little more context. So all the gnomes are gathered up, and so you're hearing the story of Puddle Bloom journeying to Winter's Peak, and he meets Alistair Owl, and he flies him up to Winter's Peak. So it's a very it's very fun, and so the gnomes are just cuddled up. So we have 3 songs here this week, actually. And so as I always say with songs, if you want to just pick one, well, go ahead and listen ahead. You certainly don't have to fit all 3 songs into your circle time. Pick one and focus on that. I'd probably recommend focusing on the Winter King song. It's pretty simple. And even if you just focus on the first verse of one song is great for a circle time. So we give you a lot of options of a lot of songs, but remember, just pick your favorite, just pick the first verse, learn those few words and repeat it with your children. The Winter King is a really fun song for the beginning of January, but we also have Introduction to Sir Alistair Owl and this beautiful Flying Upon Wings song that really feels like it takes you through the sky. So a really fun, cozy story. They're all cuddled up for tea as they listen, so you can do the same as you listen to that audiobook that will be released before this week. And then we'll get into our curriculum this week. As I mentioned, it's very simple. We get back to our cinnamon clove Play-Doh, which is cozy and nourishing, and you have your gluten-free option. Then our main activity for day one is folding towels. This is Living Arts Day at its finest, a very simple life skill that we're going to do with our children. We have a little rhyme that you can sing here, and just fold towels. I've always been surprised at how lovely this activity goes with your children, and just fold with them. You can do it as a pair, show them how to line up the corners, and it can just be a really calm way to slow down and just bring them along life, because life is the curriculum. And so we want to weave this in a way that feels really nourishing for both ourselves and for them. So towel folding, super simple, but honestly one of my favorite activities to do with children. My son absolutely loves folding towels. So you'll be surprised at how charming it can be. Our day two, baking day morning, instead of a craft or an activity, I'm actually going to just encourage you, have a cozy story time corner. Put up some pillows, make something cozy, and really take some intentional time to pick out a few favorite books, maybe play the audiobook, whatever you'd like, but make a cozy space for your children to really encourage the love of hearing stories, because stories are so good for our soul, young and old. And so if we want to encourage that love of stories, we want to encourage them picturing what's happening in their heads to strengthen those minds and the imagery and imagination in their heads. So cozy up, make a story cozy corner, read them some books, play the audiobook, and have a really cozy time. Now our baking day, our recipe for the week is orange cranberry scones. These are delicious, but I have a few tips. One, while it's still December, if you want to use frozen whole cranberries for this recipe, buy them now because they will be gone in January. Right now, cranberries are pretty easy to find in the store. If you want to use whole fresh cranberries, grab a bag and stick them in the freezer. But in 1 year, I forgot to plan ahead and I could not find any cranberries in January, and I used just dried cranberries, and it was also really delicious. And I can't decide which I like better. So if you want to use dried cranberries, you can do that because they're kind of pre-sweetened, so it made it a little sweeter. But the whole fresh cranberries are also great for kind of a little tartness. So either way, plan ahead if you want to put a bag of cranberries in your freezer. If you don't want to worry about it, craisins and dried cranberries are a great swap too, and they make a very, very delicious scone. Now, scone making is a little bit more of an advanced baking skill. So approach this with grace, and this might be a learning curve for you both. This isn't as simple as, say, just kneading bread dough. So some of you after all of December might want to actually skip this recipe and use our just Wondergarten wheat bread recipe that you'll find in the next week. If you just want to make up some bread dough and have your children just enjoy kneading, you can do that too. But if you're up for a delicious little scone that your children can eat as they listen to the story about the gnomes eating scones, reading stories, you can make these. You'll cut in the butter, you'll shape the little scones, and they are really delicious and worth the effort if you're up for it. So some options there. Of course, you have a gluten-free option for those as well. And then our painting day. This is, again, painting day at its simplest, at its core. Our morning activity, beeswax crayons, or just free drawing with whatever you have available. Let your children have some free drawing time. And our main lesson is painting. But if you want to add a little extra fun, you can do a wax resist. So with a white beeswax crayon, you can draw some snowflakes or maybe an icy castle or whatever you might like. And then prepare for wet on wet watercolor. I do have a YouTube video on how to prepare for wet on wet. That's a public video that's staying public. So if you go to our YouTube, search wet on wet, you can see how I prepare. You soak your paper, prepare your liquid watercolor. And then if you're doing wet on wet, I would recommend drawing your with your white beeswax crayon before you soak your paper. And then as that paint just kind of disperses on the paper, it will reveal what you drew. And it's a really sweet, simple, but really sweet, fun activity for children to just really experience the color. I'll recommend just doing blue, just one color, so that they can really just soak it in instead of getting too distracted by all the colors. Sometimes one color is just a really nice activity. So a simple week. You're gonna fold towels, you're gonna draw, you're gonna paint, you might make something yummy, and you'll have a really cozy story to go along with it. Then we come to Ice Week. So this is kind of our first like wintry weather experience. But of course it doesn't have to be icy outside, don't worry. Any chance that can be on the replay library, the watercolor video? Great question. Yes, over time we will, any of those public videos we can also get on the replay library, so they're all in one spot. That's a great recommendation. So Ice Week, we have a preview of our activities this week, and our story is, of course, the Winter King has come to Wondergarten. So everything is cold and everything is icy, and Puddlebloom's pond is now frozen solid. And one thing leads to another, and then the gnomes have a really fun time skating on the ice. So this is just a really fun, sweet story of gnomes ice skating. The song here is really, really fun to just put on and let children dance like they're skating. We go back to this one all the time. So for our circle time, I often just do free skate for circle time and turn on the skating song and just let them to and fro around we go. It's just a really lovely just song to let them get their wiggles out, pretend like they're skating with their friends. So a really just fun story of gnomes skating. Also, there's if you're a hockey fan, or in Canada, we do have a little nod to them starting to play hockey, which is fun too. So just one song this week, just that skating song. So definitely would recommend listening to that one. It's a really fun one. Now, our morning activity, day 1, you'll notice an option here. Now, this is an option, and I'm going to give you a few reasons why. So usually our first lesson, our morning activity, day 1, is Play-Doh. It's modeling. They're kind of waking up their hands for the week. If your child has been with us for maybe a year or two, or just the rest of the autumn season, and you feel like they might be ready for something more, you can swap that Play-Doh morning with modeling clay. I tend to like to use oven-baked clay, but I don't bake it. I just let them use it as a modeling medium, and they can create a lot of different things. It's going to take a little bit more hand strength, so we're going to exercise their hands for all of those pre-writing skills, and they can just create different things than they would with Play-Doh. If you have a younger child, or if you're still just getting started, you can still just reuse your Play-Doh from the week before and stay with Play-Doh if you'd like. But if you want to branch out, get some oven-baked clay just for them to play with. I would save air-dry clay. We have actually a pottery week in spring where air-dried clay can be a little messier and it feels more like a real pottery experience. So for this, I do like to use the oven-baked clay because it's nice and clean, and again, it just feels like another modeling medium. So if you'd like to do modeling clay, you can do that, or of course, you can keep it with Play-Doh if you prefer, whatever you'd like. And of course, if you're going to do modeling clay, you can add some other modeling tools. All of those things can help make a really fun time. But it was always really fun to give them a similar but different medium and see what they create. Then our main lesson for day 1 of Ice Week is ice sculpting, and this can also be a lot of different things. So this is really ice exploration, and you can choose from a lot of things. So here you see this week, actually, when we did this, our pond was actually frozen. So Nathaniel harvested these big blocks of ice actually from our frozen pond and gave them hammers and chisels to just explore. Now, in retrospect, they probably should have had eyeglasses on, but we explored it and it was fun. So if you are in a frozen area and want to bring in a block of ice for them to just hack at, that's going to be really fun. If you want to freeze a block or a bowl of ice for the same thing, ice chiseling, that can also be really fun. But I also have a few other options. If you want to freeze little toys in ice for them to rescue them out of the ice. If you want to make a little small world ice rink for them to play and skate on with your little wooden friends, you can do that. If you want to, we have some ice cube painting later, but if you want to have them paint on the ice, there's kind of a few different ways you can do ice painting. So if you want to give them some paints to paint on a block of ice to see what happens. You can do that. There's a ton of different ways they can explore ice, but really freeze something, have them explore it, feel the cold, and just explore the elements, even in a way, even no matter where you are in the world. So this is a really fun, just free explore. I have some options here. You can do whatever you'd like, whichever sound fun. Yeah, last year someone froze water in a sand castle bucket and it was so cute. Yes, you can make the crystal ice castle that the Winter King and the Snow Queen live in. Tons of opportunity for imagination here as well. So I love that. I love that option. Then our morning activity for day 2, we're going to start a 2-part activity for our frozen frosted branches. Now, this is really a science experiment activity, and it will have to be done with some care to be done safely. But then I also encourage you to approach it as a science experiment and not necessarily, I guarantee this will turn out exactly this way. This is an experiment, so approach it as such. But we're going to make a borax solution and dip some branches in, or if you don't have branches, you could do pipe cleaners or anything you could put in there, and then overnight these beautiful crystals grow, and then we're going to put those into a little winter mobile. So a few things to be aware of. We don't necessarily want children getting their hands or breathing in a ton of borax, because that's not going to be great for them. So when you make the borax solution, do that aside because it involves hot water and borax. But once you have that prepared, you can bring it to them and they can tie their little branches or their pipe cleaners on a stick and gently lower it into that jar and then watch and see what happens. So I do have a lot of tips here. So be sure to just read through this to see what you want to do. We used twine or copper wire was really nice to be able to easily just dip some things in. And a tip, be sure to put hot water on the borax to dissolve it immediately. One time I tried to put cold water and heat it up. That does not work. So I have some tips on here to make your solution. Be careful with it. Set it out for your kids to gently do. And some people might choose to skip this activity altogether because it's a little more involved. It kind of feels a little, it's just a little more. So if you feel like, not for us, you can totally skip it, totally fine. But if you're up for it, it's a really, really beautiful thing that they end up making. And then our baking day, Wondergarten wheat bread. Some of my favorite baking days are just when we come back to this wheat bread recipe, because I can make the dough and then just let children just knead. This is how we knead the dough. And it's so nice for them to just knead the dough, work with their hands, and then we pop it in the oven and have warm, fresh bread. So if you haven't done this recipe yet, if you're just joining us for winter, this will be your first time with this recipe. Of course, if you're here for autumn, this will be very familiar. We have 2 options, a fully gluten-free version as well that turns out really nicely. So again, like I said, for doing a yeast bread with children, I like to make my dough ahead of time and then they can punch it and knead it. And it's very simple and very successful for them. And then we have our winter mobiles. So this is where these beautiful frosted branches come into play. So you'll carefully take them out of that solution, shake them off a little bit, and then you can tie them onto a nice little branch. So if you're here in autumn, we made those autumn leaf mobiles. Now we're making a winter leaf mobile to kind of just help celebrate the season with nature. So it's a really, really beautiful finished product. You can put it in your window. The sun glistens through it. It's really lovely. Then I literally love this bread so much. It is really yummy bread. It's my favorite bread. Our main lesson for painting day is ice painting. Now this one will take a little bit of preparation. So make a little mental note that you'll need to prepare for this activity the day before because your paints need to freeze. So this is where we just mix up liquid watercolor paint. So if you have the Stockmar jars of kind of that thick liquid paint, you're going to mix it up and then pour it into your little ice cube trays and put your little popsicle sticks and freeze the paint. Now, if you don't have those specific Stockmar, you can just mix up another watercolor, get it really nice. If you just make pigmented water, I think also some people have used food coloring. So really the idea here is just get some colored ice, And then the next day, prepare for wet on wet watercolor. So soak that paper. You actually want that paper really nice and soaked because then the ice just glides. And this also is an activity that I absolutely love to kind of do a little bit of an assessment on the child of how they are doing with crossing the midline. So when a child is young, they'll tend to kind of stay, our brain has two hemispheres, and they'll kind of tend to stay on each side. And once they begin to cross their body, physically cross the midline of their body, it really does something with our brains. Those hemispheres begin to fire across, and it really is kind of a marker of brain development. So when you give each child one color in each hand, you can kind of see if they've just stayed here or if they've begun to cross the midline confidently. So if you're wanting to just kind of check in to see where your child is, or if you're in a preschool setting or something like that, this is a really great activity for that, to just see how the child is using their hands, how they're crossing the center of their body, how their little brains are firing. It's a really, really great way to see. And when I've done it with multiple age children, you can kind of see, I can tell that was the 3-year-old, it's 2 colors here. Ooh, I can tell that was the 4-year-old. Oh, I can tell that was the 6-year-old. Really how they're doing this. And I love singing or playing the skating song as we do this, so they feel like they're twirling and skating upon the frozen little paper. It's a really, really lovely one. So for this one, I do red and blue because those come together to make purple, and it's still a very wintry color. But you can also, the red can represent Thumbkin, the blue could represent Puddle Bloom, and you can even tell the story about these two gnomes skating on the ice together. If you want to do another color to represent another gnome, you can. One year I did yellow and green, but then it felt a little too springy for me in January. So I like the red and blue to make purple. So you can choose whatever colors you like, but just kind of think about what those two colors will mix to create. And lots of comments here. And it's really, really fun, and it's a nice free activity. Can you use the dried orange slices and cranberries for the borax activity? I don't know. I've never tried those. My hunch would be probably those wouldn't be the most successful, but you could give it a try. When we did things like pine cones or some things that were a little softer, it kind of tended to just bleed into the solution and not be as successful, but it's an experiment. So you could put anything you want in there and see how it comes out. So give it a try, absolutely. Will the mobiles stay intact or will they dissolve? They do stay intact pretty well if you don't touch them too much. So if you hang them up, you can stay. I would make sure that if you have little babies around, I wouldn't hang them over a place where that baby might be crawling, because there can be some little droppings of those crystals, and we don't necessarily want babies eating those. So just be mindful of where you're putting it. But they do stay intact pretty well. Of course, if you're rough with them, they might kind of fall apart, but they're strong crystals. So you can, I even still have one from last year. So if you're careful with them, they'll stay intact. Yeah, all right. I am going to take a sip of water before we head into Snow Week. Snow Week, this is a really special week, actually, for a lot of reasons that I'm going to explain to you. So Snow Week, let's dive into the story because it's a really sweet story. So we start with this scene of Rudabug. Now, Rudabug, right, is our gardener. So as we kind of got a hint of in the end of our autumn stories where he's saying goodnight to his garden, winter can be a harder time for a gnome who loves to garden. So winter is a little bit of a harder time for Rudabug because his garden is asleep. And Rudabug loves the snow because it brings a joy and a beauty to winter that when winter is cold and bleak and wet with no snow, I think we've all felt how dreary that can feel. So we start with Rudabug, and he's kind of longing for the Snow Queen, and he calls to her and sings her song. Now this song is very, 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 very special, but it's actually one of the only few, I think there's like 2 or 3 songs that Nathaniel actually didn't write the melody for this one. This was Tchaikovsky. So if you're familiar with the Nutcracker, this is Tchaikovsky's Snow Queen song. So if you know that song from the Nutcracker, he put these gorgeous lyrics to this song, and I feel like it just brings the song to so much life. And of course, this is special for us because long ago, I was the Snow Queen in the Nutcracker. So I performed to this song. This was my last performance of my dance career was the Snow Queen, and Nathaniel was stationed in Japan, had never seen me dance, and he flew across the world to surprise me at one of my last performances. So he got to see me dance the Snow Queen, and it was a lovely surprise homecoming moment. So this whole story, this whole song just has a very special place in our hearts because of the history between us and how, you know, this song was so near and dear to me since I got to perform it, and that he got to see me as the Snow Queen. So if you want to go and listen to the actual Nutcracker, it's like one of the last songs before the snow song in Act 1. So listen to it. It's so beautiful, and these words just go to it so beautifully. So really special song there. So Rudabug calls to her with this song, and then the Snow Queen comes, hooray. And so then the Snow Queen comes and covers the garden with a blanket of snow. And then the next day we have this really fun Snowy Day song, of course, sung by Petty Pom. Please post your Snow Queen video again. I did share last year a video of me doing that Snow Queen dance. So if you all insist, I can share that again if you want to. I just watched it with my children. I always love showing them every year my old Nutcracker performances. So yes, if you want, I could share. Then second half of the story is just a fun snow day. They're making snow gnomes, snow angels, and things. Yay! Oh, okay. All right. I will post that. Especially now that it's December, it's Nutcracker season. It's fun to listen to that song and watch that. So I'll post that before Christmas for you all. So Snowy Day, it's a really sweet, starts really reverent with that beautiful song and then ends really fun. So this is a really fun song to go out with your kids and hop and skip through the snow. And then, of course, the songs this week, we have Snow Queen, we have Snowy Day. They're really, I love when Nathaniel's able to weave the reverence and the fun and the range of emotions he's able to get into these stories is really remarkable, honestly. So enjoy those songs. And our activities this week, again, kind of get to enjoy the feeling of snow without being dependent on it snowing outside. Our day one, instead of Play-Doh, we have snow dough. So if you mix baking soda and either hair conditioner, or you can also use shaving cream. I tend to prefer hair conditioner because I can more easily get white unscented hair conditioner versus shaving cream. So if you mix those together, it kind of creates this snow texture. It almost even feels cold. You can put it together in a little ball and you can kind of create with it like snow. So this is also fantastic for small world play. The kids can use their little puppet figures if you want to make little snowmen and really just kind of feel what snow feels like. But also, if you want to skip this, you can also just do white Play-Doh today, if that feels better too. So if you take the cinnamon clove Play-Doh from Cozy Week and just omit the spices, that'll give you a nice just white Play-Doh. So if you just want to make an easy white Play-Doh, because the snow dough is a little messier, so that's up to you. If you want to go for it, use the snow dough, or if you want to just swap with white Play-Doh, that can totally work too, and they'll enjoy that just as much. So some snow modeling. Then we have embroidery for our Living Arts Day main activity. This I just love to introduce to children. So you use a little embroidery hoop and burlap because it has those nice spaces. And if you use a blunt tapestry needle, thread it with some yarn, they can start to, this is just perfect fine motor skills for them to be able to kind of start pushing and pulling that needle up and down. And if you want to draw a little guide of a snowflake for them to come up and down and see how that thread, that yarn can create, I'll flip back so you can kind of see it, and I'll do this overhead shot for you. So this, there we are. This is kind of what we're going for here. Now, of course, if you have little ones, don't expect it to be this perfect. This was mine that I did, but it's a great starting point. So if you have a 5 or 6-year-old, they would absolutely be able to follow a very simple drawn pattern. But for little ones, they can just get the motion of going up and down and up and down. I've done this with 2-year-olds and, right next to them, and I'll poke it through and have them, okay, go grab the needle, go up, 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 all the way through. And now can you dive the needle down through the ground? And there it is, pull it through. So if you really guide them, you can go through each step. And then once they're all the way through, because it's burlap, you can actually kind of unsew it and go back the way you came, undo it, and then you can do it again as many times as you want. So the burlap and the yarn and the blunt end needle just makes it really accessible for them. for them to try and try again. You can really guide the littler ones or your older ones. They can kind of start creating. My boys love this, and I gave this to them with a few colors of yarn the other day, and my son, he's 6, and he embroidered a candelabra. It was beautiful. So you'd be surprised what they might be able to create. And it's a really great introduction to needlework, really great fine motor skills. So really nice activity there with some embroidery, and I love having some embroidery fans get to introduce this to their little ones. Then we're making on our baking day morning, kind of that craft activity. We're doing some snowflakes, kite paper snowflakes. So with this, I like to take one sheet and cut it up into 4, so it doesn't take quite so many sheets, and then you can have a snowflake about this big instead of a snowflake about this big. But you can also follow these instructions with the bigger ones if you'd like. So if you'd like a big snowflake, you can do that with that, or you can cut it down into 4 and cut those little ones as well. And yes, the embroidery could make a cute ornament. That's a great idea. So follow these instructions. It's a little bit different of a fold than a standard window kite fold. You fold them just in instead of into a triangle, and it makes this beautiful, sweet little snowflake. Now with little ones, all of this folding can be a little tricky. So sometimes if I have like 2 3-year-olds, I pre-fold these, and then the activity more becomes assembling it. So they can use a little glue stick or put some tape and kind of stack their snowflakes however they'd like. If you want, you can also fold white and blue, and you can create multicolored snowflakes. This can still, again, be as open-ended as you want, or if you want to bring your children along the folding, that's a great skill as well. Then our baking day, we're doing these sweet little shortbread cookies. These are just a simple little cookie, and they're yummy and easy and scrumptious. So they're a sweet little shortbread cookie that you roll out. They can poke little decorations on them if you'd like, and they're nice with tea, because of course then the gnomes come inside for tea and cookies, and we have to have tea and cookies, right? So sweet little shortbread cookie, very simple there. And then painting day morning, we're going to do white window crayons. I love this because, especially in somewhere that it doesn't snow a ton. We're in the Pacific Northwest, so it is always exciting when the Snow Queen does finally grace us with her presence. But a lot of times, January is just wet and cold. And so using white window crayons to draw little snowflakes, or what I love to do is to take a block crayon and on the bottom of my windows kind of draw that little kind of snowy, frosty accumulation so that it looks like I have snowy windows. Really fun too. So use those white window crayons. You can draw snowflakes, you can draw a winter scene, and it just kind of helps bring the idea of snowy outsides inside. And then our painting day activity for Snow Week. This is one of my favorites, salt snowflake painting. So this one also is one of those, make a little note. You'll have to prepare the day ahead of time. So take a watercolor piece of paper, we're not soaking it this time, and make little snowflake shapes with Elmer's glue. Just standard Elmer's glue works best. And then sprinkle some salt on top. I tend to like to do a mix of really fine salt and coarse salt. You can use any salt you want, just make sure it's white. We don't want to do the pink Himalayan salt for this because we want it to be nice, white, and snowy. So sprinkle it with some salt and then kind of shake off the excess. And then the next day when it's time for painting, this works really best with that liquid watercolor, as I mentioned, so the Stockmar that you mix in water. But this also can, of course, be done with just regular watercolors as well. And then when they dip their paintbrush onto that snowflake, it just disperses and it's really, really beautiful. So with this, I also like to do blues and purples and kind of cool tones that will mix nicely on their little snowflakes. So this is a really, really beautiful little activity. And then January week 4, game week. This is a really fun week because it really kind of captures what it feels like to be kind of stuck inside in the cold when you've kind of already done everything. And what do you do now? And it's a really, really great midwinter week. So our story, so the Snow Queen came and she covered Wondergarten in snow. And so all of the gnomes and friends are kind of trapped in, they're snowed in. And so they're getting a little bit bored. They're kind of just sitting there. And so it's this kind of funny story of rudabug kind of just laying around. They're all just kind of laying around. And then, of course, Petty Palm, our chipper little young gnome, has some ideas, and he breaks out into this really fun song called You're Bored. And this song I think is hilarious, and it's just really fun. So read through the lyrics, and he says, "You're bored, I know." And then he goes into all the things that you can do when you're bored, a ton of fun ideas. Sometimes I just end up singing the song to my kids because they're like, "What do I do?" And I can, well, you can build a fort or stack some blocks or make a puppet with a sock. And there's so many fun things that he rattles off. And so it's a really fun scene of him singing all the things they can do while they're stuck inside. So he sings that song. This song is actually like a 2-page spread because there's so many words that we wanted to get into that. So that song is, of course, on the winter album. You can listen along to. And then we get to do some of these things in our week. So we'll start off with a simple Play-Doh, or you can reuse your clay or just kind of anything you have. Again, that Play-Doh keeps really well if you keep it airtight. So if you made this on Cozy Week, you can, or even if you still have Play-Doh from autumn, you could reuse this. And then our main lesson, we're going to do some tic-tac-toe. You can do this with sticks and acorns, or you could, of course, draw it on paper. And just to begin, if your children are little, to introduce gameplay. With your children, or if they're a little older, play some games. So whatever, if this is their first time really playing a game, introduce them to the concept of gameplay and putting a piece down or marking a little mark on their spot and playing games together. Our day 2 morning, we'll be doing puzzles. So again, a great cozy snowy day activity. You can use whatever puzzles you have. Our January kit will come with a puzzle, but any kid-friendly puzzles will do just great. So do some puzzles. Now I do have a little note here for families who are staying a little more true to Waldorf philosophy. Puzzles can be a little bit controversial in early childhood in Waldorf because they're considered kind of a head activity. They're kind of a higher level thinking. So in a traditional Waldorf school, you wouldn't see puzzles in early childhood because they want to keep them kind of not going into their heads just yet. I do love a good puzzle. So this is up to you. So this is just a note so that you can kind of make a decision based on what's best for your family. Of course, obviously, everything we do is very flexible to the Waldorf approach, but we want to honor it since it is a little bit part of our roots. But if you're really wanting to stay true to Steiner's philosophy, maybe skip the puzzles, or if you love a puzzle, go ahead and do it. So just wanted to put a little note there just so that you can be aware of that if you need. But you can do some puzzles. And then our baking day, we'll do our wheat bread again. So this is where we get to come back to a familiar recipe, bake that bread again. It's always really nice to come back to something familiar. As the mom or the teacher, you don't have to think so much. It's like, oh, I know that recipe. I've done it a million times. For the kid, it's really nice to just come back to something they know. It's kind of just that predictable, secure feeling. So come back to this nice, yummy bread recipe. Then our day 3, our morning, instead of crayons, we're going to be doing pattern block mandalas. Now, your supply kit won't come with these, and this is just an example. This can be anything you have. So if you have pattern blocks like these, this is a great time to get them out and have them make shapes. Even if you just have loose items or found items, you can create little patterns. This can be whatever you have. If you want to get some fun blocks, this could even be magnet tiles. This could be whatever. The idea here is just free creating with shapes, with blocks, with things to create patterns and colors and beauty. So whatever you have, whatever you can find, just kind of a free creation morning is the idea here. I do get a million questions about where I did get these blocks in the photos. These are blocks that my mom saved for me my entire life. So these she got way back when. I'm not sure. I do think they still exist out there, but I'm not sure where to get them. So if anyone knows, you can pop that in the chat because they're really, I do love this set. And I'm hoping maybe we can get some manufactured ourselves as well. But for now, use what you have. Just free create kind of beautiful shapes and patterns. And then our main lesson for painting day, we're going to be making some game cards. So this can also take shape in a few different ways. If you want to cut out little pieces of watercolor paper and round the corners, and they can color on them, and you can essentially create and make your own matching game, or kind of, again, just kind of getting the idea of playing games with what we have around. So if they color green on a few and blue on a few and purple on a few, you can shuffle them up and start to do a memory game if you would like, or anything that sounds fun. Or if they're little and they just kind of want to color on some watercolor paper, that's fine too. It's just kind of a fun opportunity if you want to make a memory card game or anything like that. You can do that. And that concludes January, a really sweet month, lots of cozy themes, lots of fun stories, lots of sweet songs, and a really nice, again, kind of calm, slow pace after the joyful rush of December. And so I hope that feels good for you all. Looks like I have some great suggestions here for some of the loose parts for the mandalas. So love that. We have just a few minutes. So if you have any specific clarification questions on anything I said, I would love to answer any last questions. If you have real customer service questions, of course, that's best to go straight to Wondergarten team. But if you want me to repeat anything or anything like that. If you did join late, of course, I might just say rewatch the replay. Auto replay will be later today. High quality clipped replay will be later this week. But otherwise, I think January is always a warm welcome after December. And I hope you're all having a lovely December. It's always so sweet and so fun to see all your photos and shares and tags about what you're doing so far. We've had a lovely few weeks as well. So always love to see it. And the stories are always so charming. One little note, for audiobook release schedule, Nathaniel will continue to release kind of around every Thursday, but then he'll take a break off for Christmas week. Of course, Christmas is on a Thursday, so we're not going to be releasing that week. But then by that point, all of the December audiobooks will already be released. So we'll release all of those, we'll take a break, and then the first story of January will be released right after the new year. So you can look forward to that. I'm glad you all are excited. Thank you, thank you. I will also, again, post details of the new community plan structure. And I just also want to thank you all for just the support and understanding through all of this, changes with community. I know it can be hard to switch a plan or to pay for something that used to be free, but I really have appreciated all of you seeing the value in the space that we've created, and helping and keeping it accessible and affordable for those who need it, but then also giving opportunities for you to support us along so that we can keep this space and keep maintaining it. And so I really appreciate all of that as well. Yay, all right, thank you all. More updates as always to come. I hope you all have a lovely holidays. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. I'll be back here in the new video support plan in January for our February overview. And of course, lots of fun things coming in the new year. We're working hard on that summer curriculum, so I can't wait for y'all to see what's coming in the realm of summer to release this spring. So always lots of fun things happening. Thank you all for the support and love. I hope you have a lovely, beautiful holiday season, Advent season, Merry Christmas, a Happy New Year, and we'll be in touch. We'll keep you as up to date as we can on everything as always, and I will hope to see most of you again in January. Thank you, friends.